I used to look at exercise as punishment, as means to an end. It was to counter almost something else that I did. That's the first paradigm I just want to blow up.
Today's guest is Ella Lucas-Averett, a businesswoman, triathlete, and host of the popular podcast On Air with Ella. In today's episode, Ella shares powerful insights on how to make healthy eating and exercise more fun, how to reframe our failures, and how to create healthier relationships for a more fulfilled life.
I block an hour every single day that's just for me. I just invested 8 minutes in myself to plan my week, and then I invested in this muscle that I call keeping your word to yourself, and showed up for myself every day and followed through.
Hey there, my friends. This is Dr. Anthony Balduzzi, and I want to welcome you back to another great episode here on the Fit Mother Project podcast. Today, I'm joined by one of my new friends, Ella Lucas-Averett. She is a businesswoman, triathlete, keynote speaker, and the host of the amazing podcast called On Air with Ella, a show for anyone looking to live better, feel better, and have some fun along the way. Ella claims her greatest superpower is trial by error, and she loves to bring her audience along with her pursuit of living her best life one step at a time. Now, what I love about Ella and why I wanted to bring her onto the show is because she's so well versed in all things health, wellness, mindset, success, business. She has her hand in so many different facets of life. And quite frankly, in my opinion, she's absolutely crushing it. And we're going to bring her on today to talk about some practical tips and strategies to help you succeed, get out of your own way. And along the way, we're actually going to ask Ella some really interesting questions to get to know her. And I think there's going to be some powerful themes throughout this conversation. So Ella, welcome to the other side of the mic. I'm happy to have you here on the Fit Mother podcast.
Hey, Dr. A, thanks for having me. And thank you for sharing your podcast family with me. I'm so happy to be here.
You're welcome. I love these spaces because it's a chance to really have a deep conversation with somebody because you come with that intention. And sometimes I find the conversations I have with people on my podcast are like even better and deeper than I have with some of my close friends sometimes, which maybe that means I just need to like do a better job with my friends. But I think it also means that this platform is really amazing. And it's unique because you've sat down and you have over 300 episodes on your podcast. So you've had a lot of deep conversations, which means you've gotten a lot of perspectives and you certainly have your own. And because this is a health and fitness focused community, where I want to start off is kind of through the lens of health, which is something that you're very passionate about, but also through the lens of like mindset, because we know that the reason we're not healthy is not because we don't know, it's because we can't actually do or get habits in place. So here's a scenario. Ella, talk to us about busy mom out here who knows she wants to like exercise and do better, but she feels like she doesn't have the time and can't get traction or small kicks here and there, but can't do this. Like what's happening? What's going on? How would you counsel this particular person to bust through this?
Oh, you mean 99.7% of the population?
Yeah. Humans. Yeah.
Yeah. Who has time? Nobody has time for anything, right? That's our chronic state. I have so much to say about that. But first, I need to tell you what I mean when I say my superpower is trial by error is that the reason I have developed any depth in this arena is because I've failed at it profoundly for say 25 years. And that's where my expertise, I say in quotes, comes from. And that is to say that I started a business in 2003 and I started a podcast in 2015. Oh, I started a child somewhere around 2001. All the things. And so I just want to put myself in the same seat as anyone who is listening and who is like, that's great that other people have this time and these margins and they have the ability to do this and they have the ability to do that because the interwebs make it look like everybody's out here crushing it all of the time, right? And meanwhile, we mere mortals are sitting around trying to figure out how to make it all work. So it's just really important to me, Dr. A, to like let people know that my life looks the same as yours in so many different ways. I bet we all have way more in common than we don't. Yeah. With that said, one of the biggest challenges that we have, of course, is finding the time to do the things that matter. There's so very much to say. The first thing that I would say is that when it comes to just moving our bodies, which is just one of the big rocks, there are relationships and your finances and your security and your mental health. But let's talk about this rock. When it comes to that rock, I would challenge how we look at it. And I'll explain that, but I want to pause and make sure I'm not just running on.
No, this is perfect. I want to do it. Like, let's go. Keep on going.
Okay.
I'm with you
Okay.
100% on this.
Because we're just jumping in the deep end, because
Yeah.
the way we think about, and certainly the way I did, I'll just use myself as an example. I used to look at exercise, a word I don't even use anymore, and I'll tell you what I mean by that. But I used to look at exercise as punishment, as means to an end, as something that I did to get a certain outcome. Now, if anyone out there has ever tried to fit into a different pair of jeans, or had some big event coming up, or felt like they ate too much pizza the night before, anyone, probably not, probably nobody, but just in case anyone out there can relate to that, that is how I viewed the act of moving my body. It was to counter almost something else that I did. So that's the first paradigm I just want to blow up, Dr. A, for the people who are joining us today in this conversation. And it's easy for me to say. I want to be super clear. It took me about 15 years to get there. So I did the whole movement to change my body, the whole movement to achieve a certain outcome thing for far too long. And one of the things that I try to do with my work is help people get to a conclusion that I got to, and get there in a lot less time. And that is, I don't even use the word exercise. I use two words in my vocabulary. One is movement and the other one is training. We talked a little bit about this when I was honored to have you on air with Ella. And to me, movement is something we need to do with our bodies every single day, because that's what they're made for.
Yep.
And training is something that I do for a specific outcome. But guess what? It's an outcome that serves me. Yeah. I'm not in service to it. Does that make sense so far?
It does. It's profound, actually, when you think about it. And like, even fundamentally, how the words that we regularly use, we have some kind of emotional attachment to them, which obviously can be punitive, like your relationship to exercise, or like some beautiful reward, like training moves you closer to something. And naturally, if we're using the same language patterns or relating it to that way, it's going to shape our emotion and obviously our consistency with that. And I was struck by this when I was on your podcast, and you told me that you do not like the word anti-aging. And I'm like, that makes so much sense. It's a dumb word that all of us use. Like, we're trying to fight against this concept of aging, which is natural, which you enjoy, like longevity and thriving and in these positive things. And so there's a lot of wisdom in what you said already. Please keep on going.
Well, semantics matter. The words we use matter. For example, I don't call exercise self-care, and I'll dive a bit deeper in, but I just want to throw a mess on the table first. Yeah. I don't call exercise, stop calling exercise self-care. When you call exercise self-care, or you view it that way, whether you're articulating that or not, you're putting it right up there with a day at the spa.
Right.
So anytime we take care of our physical bodies, like, that's not indulgent. That is not something that we find time for when everything else is done. So I think word choice matters. And I have to say, with regard to anti-aging, like, your 3-month-old baby is aging. We're all aging. We're all here aging at the same rate, chronologically anyway. Yeah. I am definitely super interested in talking about longevity. I just turned 50. I have a lot to say about building our vitality in our 40s, in our 50s. The way we talk to ourselves really, really matters. I'm not anti anything that's inevitable, because where would that leave me? So,
yeah, and resistance, for sure. And resistance and conflict, and like a losing game automatically versus how good can I be, and more expansionary thinking.
Well, and that is the whole frame of mind, again, that took me far too long to develop when it came to how I took care of my physical body. And when I create a difference between movement and training, I want to break that down just a little bit in case it's useful, because it's great to talk about this, and it's great to like think about something and reframe it a little bit differently. But I'm all about like practical tips. Like, I want you to walk out of here and do something slightly differently, or not be able to unsee it after this conversation. Okay. So I want to challenge those who are listening in with us today and sharing in this conversation with us today to just ask themselves a couple questions. First of all, movement I define as things like walking, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe dancing in the kitchen,
Yeah.
or gardening for some, whatever lights you up. But it's something where it involves agility and freedom of movement, and you're not doing it for any outcome whatsoever. You're doing it because that's what you were made to do. And for
Yeah.
some of us, some days, that's 8 minutes of walking because that's all we had time for. Do you
Right.
know what I mean?
Yes, totally. And it's like, it's an expression. It's like you wouldn't say that the flower opening its petals is anything other than its very nature. And the human is meant to be in motion. So I love it. And we can stack it with other things. Take the call that you're going to take while you're moving. Like it can be woven in as a mindset throughout your entire day when it's not a discrete thing like exercise.
Look, my grandmother wasn't going to the gym. Why?
Right.
Because she didn't have one.
Yeah.
She didn't. My dear mother-in-law is 91 years young. Okay. The woman does not have a hearing aid, a pair of glasses, a walking stick, nothing in sight. Okay. Nothing. She has nothing. And she just bounces around everywhere she goes. And part of the reason she does that, by the way, she's never been to an exercise class in her actual life. Okay. But she does all this. Well, she's walked every day of her life, and she
Yeah.
didn't set out to walk because she needed to lose 5 pounds. She set out to walk because she enjoyed being outside, because she had 30 minutes a day to move her body. So again, I get a little passionate about this. I'm going to dial it back just a teensy. But my point is that I would love to challenge us to separate the two concepts. And we can talk a little bit about what training actually means, but separate the two concepts between movement and training. And movement, my friends, is not optional.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree. Well said. Let's get into training.
Okay. So training, this is funny because training is what I used to call exercise. And I've already explained that I used to do that for several reasons, none of which are particularly sustainable nor healthy if you really look at it. And something funny happened, and that is that I broke. So after years of a disordered relationship with food, and frankly, probably a disordered relationship with exercise, given that I was always trying to achieve some sort of outcome, Dr. A, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I landed on a sport when I was already a mom, and I was in my late 20s or early 30s. And by the way, at 23 years old, if you had chased me with a weapon, I couldn't have run a mile. I could not have run a mile at 23 years old. Okay. So not an athletic bone in my body. And I was strong, but I wouldn't say I was particularly athletic. And that was not my experience in school. And somebody challenged me, which is a really great way to get me to do anything. Somebody challenged me to a local triathlon and to sign up for the race. And I did. And I won't bore you with the details, but I started training for that race. I stopped thinking about exercise and I started training for that race. And that was a few years ago. And the addiction was immediate in the healthiest way possible. I felt absolutely head over heels in love with the sport. But someone's listening right now and they're like, that's great. I am literally never doing that. Like, what does that have to do with me? And this is the point that I'm making. It doesn't matter whether you do a couch to 5K. It doesn't matter if you do a triathlon. It doesn't matter if you do a Zumba class. Training, what are you training for? When you move your body and you sweat and you engage and it's a hard workout, there are not sunshines and daisies pouring out of your ears when you're doing this, right? It's hard. When you're doing that, what are you training for? Because there are so many outcomes that if you're in training, that you can completely reframe the way you look at what we used to call exercise. Maybe you are training for agility. Maybe you're training for a dance competition or being able to play with your kids freely or unselfconsciously. You know what I mean?
I do. I want to add a little medical lens on top of this because what you're talking about is absolutely genius and life-changing for ways people may not yet appreciate. So humans, we are teleological beings. Fancy philosophical word for we like to take aim at stuff and go for it. It's kind of how our nervous system and brain is designed. And we have this whole aspect of our emotional brain and our limbic system that operates on dopamine. And dopamine is this neurotransmitter that makes us feel motivated. It propels us to seek things. And what's so amazing is that when you start to set a frame of training, you're automatically creating some kind of thing that you're aiming at that engages this dopamine reward circuit. And if you were just exercising, it's almost like the exact opposite. I wouldn't be surprised if it actually lit up your brain in a way that was like pain and avoidance signals, like your amygdala, fear, withdrawal, versus activating this dopamine experience of that neurochemistry, which makes you feel so motivated. So like this is like nuts how good this is. And whether it's a discrete event or even just you're training for a milestone date that you're checking in on your fat loss progress or your strength, something down the road, you've created this literally psychological frame that's influencing your neurochemistry that makes you feel good about doing what you want to do. Wow. Like that makes it easier.
You're aiming at something rather than suffering because of something. And I don't care if some of this is mind games. It flipping works. So I'll start there.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome. I absolutely love that. I think that's so powerful. What kind of ways have you found, just because you've had a lot of health and fitness conversations, what are your favorite ways to train? And I consider you in wonderful shape at 50. What ways do you like to train? And what do you believe is important if you could have blanket statements about training? What kind of training would you suggest most women do if they actually liked it or they could like it?
I would love to start again with where I just got this so wrong. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if anyone can relate to this, but I started with a journey where I thought I had to spend an hour to an hour and a half in a gym to get my exercise in. That was back in the exercise days, if you follow me. Mm-hmm. And then when I moved into the training world, training for triathlon, an hour and a half is like a lovely bike ride. You know what I mean? You need to be running for an hour, biking for an hour and a half, and swimming for 40 minutes to an hour and a half, right? Oh, okay. Who's got that kind of time? But totally. I also was running a consulting company at the time, and I had a small child at the time. And so that was still, again, where it's not sunshine and daisies all the time. Like I struggled constantly with the balance and trying to, quote, fit it all in. But I was hardcore and I made it happen. Okay. Mm-hmm. All of that was still quite forced. And mm-hmm. as usual, I do everything well until I break it. Mm-hmm. I do everything great until I run head first, really, at speed into a solid brick wall. And I was getting injured all the time. Go figure. And I probably wasn't nourishing myself the way that I needed to be for what I was doing, etc. Right? Mm-hmm. So bring it up to the past X years, much more recently. And to answer your question, I love to do a myriad of things, but I do it all. I'm so much more chill about it, Dr. Like, I don't know how else to say it, Dr. A. Like, I'm just so much more chill about it. I'm so much more at peace, and it's so much easier. So I hope this gives somebody hope, because a typical week might be, and this is so funny because today all I did was walk. There was no training today. There was just movement. Okay. And I look at my week on Sunday and I put in my calendar, I don't put movement into my calendar because I don't put breathing into my calendar. So why would I put movement into my calendar? But I put training into my calendar and I make that appointment with myself. And that is a hugely practical tip I hope somebody takes away today. I make that appointment with myself and I keep my word to myself and I do my training when it is scheduled. Okay. Today, zero training, just movement.
It was scheduled zero training day for emphasis.
It was a scheduled zero training day. And sometimes you have to let it go because sometimes you're in a season and sometimes it crops up and sometimes things happen and you have to let it go. Yeah. But I just assume that I'm going to do some kind of training every single day, 6 days a week. And sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. My point is, again, it's built in. It's not a debate that I have with myself. It is built in as much as brushing my teeth and breathing in and out is built in. And when it comes to what I actually do, and I'm used to do a lot of half Ironman triathlons. And now the distance that I'm absolutely in love with and that fits into my lifestyle right now is the international distance or the Olympic distance. So that's going to be, a 1,500 yard swim or something of that nature. And then it's going to be a 40K bike and it's going to be a 10K run. Okay. Just to give you some sort of context there. I'm not out there doing that kind of load on a day-to-day basis. So I'm going to try and ride my bike twice a week. I'm going to try to run twice a week, and I'm going to try to do strength training twice a week.
Yeah.
And strength training is me in the basement pounding, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And I also see how, because you have these different events that you're training for and they have different facets, that it naturally slots in throughout the week that you have this idea of doing some kind of training every single day. And I'll just counsel anyone who is not necessarily training for the level of fitness that you're looking to achieve to do an Olympic distance triathlon, that even getting 2 or 3 appointments of training on your schedule of doing the proper workouts is plenty. I mean, you can have a good effect. I think the whole idea that we need to like work off our food or work off our calories like needs to die. And we're creating a stimulus for the body through proper exercise that the body then heals and recovers from. And in the meantime, we move, we drink water, we eat good food, and it's enough to get a couple pulses. It doesn't need to be all the time.
I'm so glad you said that, because I'm not normal. Like, I want to be really clear about that. And I work with a lot of women in my own community, in my podcast community, and then honestly, frankly, just my friends and my peers. And what I see get results. And I am not a fitness guru. Dr. A is the expert here. I am not. This is purely anecdotal. But what seems to work so well is when people can go for a walk 5 days a week. Because again, nothing is all the time, right?
Yeah.
Movement can be you danced in your kitchen for 5 minutes. That's what movement can be one day. But when they can walk 4 to 5 times a week, and that might be 15 minutes a day, and they can kind of pound it and do like a high intensity, short duration workout for 2, maybe 3 days, it's changed their lives. It's exactly completely changed their lives.
I give that full stamp of approval on that, 1,000%. I want to ask you a kind of a follow-up question, and this is going to be from the lens of your productivity. I mean, high exercise demand, a mom, businesswoman, podcast host. I know you've developed natural systems for approaching your week. It sounds like there's some kind of Sunday pre-planning ritual. I'd be curious if there's other like key routines that like run your week, morning, evening routine, any kind of meal prep stuff, how you schedule different types of days. Like, I want us inside the mind and the system of productive Ella. Like, what does it look like? What do you do? And even if it's very specific to you, I just would love to hear about it.
Okay. I really hope that you aren't sorry that you asked me this question.
Let's
and
go.
I really hope that I don't disappoint you.
No, it's good. If the answer is either like some insane routine or absolutely nothing, I think they're both valuable.
Look, I spent so many years trying to hack my way into optimizing every area of my life. Like, I spent so many years. And frankly, I think it worked. Like, I think it probably worked for the season that it did. And then I ran it into the ground, right?
Yeah.
I am at a phase in my life where I am letting so much more flow for me, but I'm letting it flow, Dr. A, inside a pretty structured human. So I'd love to explain the dichotomy if I can.
Yeah.
I think that, I mean, I was biohacking me. I was hacking productivity tips. I was listening to all the bro science. I was doing all the things. I was taking supplements just because people said that they were good for them. And I was like, that sounds great. I was doing all the stuff. And I am a lot of things, but the one thing that I'm not is I'm never going to make it sound easier or simpler than it is. And I'm not going to be self-aggrandizing and make it sound like I do things perfectly. Let me tell you something. When I say I look at my calendar on Sunday, I mean, I want to paint a really clear picture. I open my laptop because I'm doing it anyway. And I look at my calendar and I block an hour every single day. That's just for me. Okay. And that's usually my training plus 15 minutes to get myself cleaned back up. Okay. Yep. So that is all. That is it. There was nothing fancy that happened there. I just invested 8 minutes in myself to plan my week. And then I invested in this muscle that I call keeping your word to yourself, and showed up for myself every day and followed through. Okay. Yeah. But I am not out here. I get up early in the morning because I do. But then on the days I get up early in the morning, guess what? Your girl's not a robot. I'm going to sleep early. If I got up at 5:30 in the morning, guess who's asleep by 10 latest. So I think it can be quite seductive when we listen to podcasts, which are amazing. And we hear people say, I mean, I get up and I have my journaling hour from 5 a.m. to
Yeah,
6 a.m. while
for
I
sure.
drink my lemon water. And then I'm going to have a little bit of matcha so that I have some energy. And then I'm going to do my workout. And then I'm going to spend some quality time with my partner. I mean,
Right.
I'm out here winging it with the best of them, but
Yeah.
I'm trying to wing it inside of some pillars that I have created for myself.
And I hear you. And I see how pivotal that one training thing, the training pillar is for you, because it's like the cornerstone of the house. Like you slot that in. That's a container for your word to yourself. It makes sure that if you're hitting that, other things are falling in place. I'm curious on the nutrition front. I mean, you know a lot about like what healthy food is for your body and what is not. Do you have a standardized first meal of the day, or something? Is there any kind of repeat structure to your nutrition, or is it also pretty free flowing at this point?
Oh, you're gonna laugh. I mean, you're gonna delete me after this, Dr.
This
A.
is real. I mean, this is why you're here, for real. I love it. I
Okay,
mean, tell us you eat Krispy Kreme donuts too, and then everyone's going to
that
start
is
training for triathlons.
that is not the case. That is definitely not the case. But I'll tell you something. I had a lot of food rules in my day,
Hmm.
and I moralized food. I thought some foods were good. I thought
Hmm.
some foods were bad. Dr. A, there were years where I only ate half the banana because I didn't want to get fat.
Right. I hear
Okay.
you.
Years. That is absolute madness. Now, some people can have rules for themselves. I had to ditch the rules and I had to go through a really bumpy process and dabble in what they call intuitive eating,
Hmm.
and then kind of climb back out of that and then settle into a place in my life where I realized something. And this is so I want you to know I'm condensing 12 years of suffering
Yeah.
into a clever summary. I want to be
Hmm.
really clear about that because some people listening are still in that place where they're binge eating, or they feel out of control, or they feel
Yeah.
like honestly the food's in control of them, or they feel guilty when they consume a food, which is
Hmm.
madness. And so I want to be really clear that I'm not being flip, but I am being efficient with our
Hmm.
time. When I say the whole journey is documented on the air because I was literally going through it on the air. Okay. I had the funniest experience. I was doing all these things. I was trying to figure out why I would ever binge eat like a normal, happy, healthy person. I don't know what normal means, but bear
Hmm.
with me. Why I would ever engage in behavior like that was beyond me. And I read the books and I talked to the people and I listened to the things. And at the end of the day, I was talking to a lovely, dear, trusted friend of mine who happens to be a health practitioner. And she said, God, we make such a big deal out of food. We
Hmm.
make such a fuss out of food. It's just really simple. And for some reason, her message, the stop making such a big deal out of it message, probably combined with a lot of other factors,
Hmm.
cut through something for me. And I really received that at the time. And I just thought, what am I doing? I have so much energy. I have so much that I want to do. I have a lot of people that count on me. Why is this taking up more than 1% of my day? Not the actual
Hmm.
eating. Why is thinking about what I'm going to eat or did eat or might eat and oh my God, I better eat that so it goes away and it's not there anymore?
Yeah.
Why would I ever let that take up more than 1% of my day? And relating back to that person who was in a place that was so unhealthy and so distracted and so obsessed, that feels like I'm talking about somebody that I know and I care
Hmm.
about, but I don't hang out with anymore.
Yeah.
If that makes sense to you. So
Totally does.
now I have no food rules. I eat healthy because I like the way that it feels. And
Yes.
if I want the chocolate chip cookie, I eat it and I don't eat it quickly. And I enjoy it. And I'm like, this is good. And I don't feel
Hmm.
guilty about it. And then if I have a glass of wine, I don't overdo it because I don't have that problem. Like it's not a problem for me to have a glass of wine and super enjoy it and leave it. Like that is not something that I was ever burdened with. And I'm grateful for that, but
Hmm.
I can appreciate what it feels like when it feels like other things are in charge of you. So I just want to say to anyone listening who might be able to relate to that, that that is a dark tunnel to be in and that there is such a light at the end of that tunnel. And one of the best things that you can do is get super honest about where you are and start
Mhm.
talking to somebody, because when you drag that stuff into the light, it just doesn't hold dominion over you anymore. And it gets
Yeah.
much, much, much smaller.
Well
Um,
said. It's really amazing
yeah.
to hear your journey. I think a lot of people will resonate with that. And I want to offer like my perspective on your condensed 12-year journey. In the nice thing is like, I think it's because you went through what you did with creating structure and then tying so much anxiety to the structure that then this full circle
Mhm.
learning of bringing that darkness into the light is even meaningful. So what I'm trying to say is it seems to me that this is a process and an evolution of your awareness that is here and benefiting because you went through the different stages of the game. Like what I see is people who are like, there's this dimension of like chaos and order that we're kind of playing on. And now you've created a life where you had so much order in these different things. You created results, but it created problems that now you've been able to flip and integrate back into the free flowing, but still taking the good parts of what that was. And now you don't think about it and it flows and it's beautiful. For someone who's in like pure chaos, sometimes
Mhm.
creating order is a part of that process of creating structure to work, but then peeling back the layers, like it's a journey. It took you a decade. And I just want to like emphasize that.
Yeah, and it was hard. And it's not just, I mean, so much of this has to do, I would say 90% of this is happening from the neck up, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And I did not realize, just to use, let's use binge eating as an example, as dark as it is. I had to really do the work to figure out, again, I was happy. I love my husband. Like I love my kid. I have great
Mm-hmm.
life, great dog, happy as can be. What am I doing? And I had to really peel back some layers to figure out what in fact was I doing. And when
Mm-hmm.
we trade shame for curiosity, we just yield so much better and faster results. So
Mm-hmm.
if shame and self-flagellation were an effective strategy,
Yeah,
don't you think it would have worked by now?
for sure. It almost seems like the
So
root of these meditation practices is observing the mind with non-judgment. And that's like effectively the curiosity experience versus attaching to a thought, judging it as bad, suppressing it down, creating conflict, and then beating yourself up and staying on the guilt shame cycle. So it's real healing you've done.
you say everything 10 times more beautifully than I could ever express it. I'm just out here living messily
Yeah.
and paying attention. So when you pay attention, which
Yeah,
is again so much easier to say than it is to do, because
for
paying
sure.
attention requires some level of stillness and it
Yes.
requires, some willingness to look within. And when
Yes.
we pay attention, though, like the changes that we've been working so hard for can come just like that.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, it
so
is the unlock for sure.
yeah.
What I love about your life journey, from what I've gotten to learn now and see from your episodes and you as a podcast host, is like you have, insofar as you've done a lot of external stuff, business, athletics, family, all that. You've had a lot of your power like shining back in on yourself and the self reflection thing. And I mean, that's I think the cool benefit of starting a health journey is one that's really sustainable. Ultimately, shows you that the external actions and structures you're creating are really like a reflection of your own internal awareness. And I hope this conversation emphasizes the importance of this awareness process, largely through just viewing you in celebration for your relaxed, free flowing, high performance, happy life that you've now embody as a byproduct of the self awareness practice. And that's
Well, I,
amazing. We all want
I
some more
still,
of that.
I
I
still
know we're not
drink way
trying to
too
put you
much
on at all.
caffeine.
I get you. You're not perfect. And that's good. And I don't even think you should fix that, but I hear you. That's awesome. Question now, kind of like on the same lines, but a little different. Like, you've seen a lot of people, I'm sure, in your life, friends, family, clients, people on the podcast who often like don't feel good enough. Like,
Yeah.
and it's tough. It's like you're in this black hole of like feeling not worthy, out of place, imposter. But yet at the same time, there's things you need to do that would actually help you get better. So obviously there's a motivational component too, but like, how do we work out of this like imposter syndrome, not feeling good enough? How do we build self-esteem? Like, and why is it important? Like, let's talk about this dimension of our lives.
Oh my gosh. And can we do like a 6-week series on this, please? Because this stuff, it goes deep and this is
Yeah.
real. Who doesn't feel that way? I mean, it in some context, in
Yeah.
some experience,
For sure.
in a month or in a year or in a season. Who doesn't feel that way? And honestly, that's the first most useful thing that we can say about it. Everyone's out here making it up as they go along. Everyone, Anthony, I wish somebody had told me when I was 21 and just setting out and leaving school and sort of forging my path. I wish somebody had said, hey, just PS, Ella, those people that you look up to and those people who are killing it and those people that just started that business and like everything's roses, they have no idea what they're doing.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean we don't gain wisdom, and it doesn't mean
Right.
that we don't gain experience. It just means every time you're taking a step outside of your comfort zone, you are winging it, friend. And it's
Yeah.
just that the foundation that you get to fall back on just gets larger and larger and larger.
Yes.
And maybe in a sense you make fewer mistakes, or at the very least you learn that they're very rarely fatal, right?
Yeah.
And that's the real lesson.
Right.
But the first thing I would do is I would say, my God, you're in such good company. Everyone feels that way. And the people that look the most confident to you, or the people who are living the biggest lives, then presumably, mathematically speaking, they feel that way more often than you do. Because every time you step out, every time you grow, it's supposed to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But you know what? I think that so much of this has to do, and this is well outside of my wheelhouse, but so much of this just has to do with the messages that we receive when we're younger, whether we receive them explicitly or implicitly. Like my parents were lovely people, are still, excuse me, lovely people, but I didn't have any capital T trauma, as I was coming up in the world. But implicitly, I received messages through my environment, through my family experiences, et cetera, that allowed me to create a story of unworthiness, just like it did for you and you and you, like that we all have it. So again, understanding that is the first step, in my opinion, to cracking that nut. And then there are an infinite number of ways to address it. But one practical tip that I will leave with you in this vein is if we reframe how we think of failure, then the scaries can be diminished quite significantly. Yeah. And what I mean by that is we are taught that success is some sort of linear path. And if you do A and B, you'll get to C. And then if you get C right, then maybe D and E will come your way. And we proceed accordingly. And I don't know about you, except I do know about you. My life doesn't look like that. Does yours?
Yeah. No. Zigzag, a surprise here, twist and turn, embrace it, Yeah.
Could you have ever written your life script for yourself back in the day?
0%. No.
I mean, zero. And I wouldn't trade my life for the linear one that I was sort of programmed to believe was out there for me. When we realize that, and I'm not being clever when I say this, if you survive the failure, then it wasn't failure. It was a lesson.
Yes.
And people say stuff like that all the time, Anthony. They say stuff like that all the time. And I wish I could put my hands on everybody's shoulder and look you retina to retina and say, if you survived it, it was a lesson. So what did you learn to take into the next thing?
Yes.
The only way, in my opinion, is to just keep showing up and be willing to not die and keep trying. And that is how I have proceeded through every one of those brick walls that I've mentioned to you.
What you said is so true that I literally over the last minute got chills, like up to my head. I still feel them. And that's powerful. And I think another thing, because I get the privilege of having a very young daughter right now, so I see her in her formation stages. It's clear to me that to get to where we're desiring to go, our heart is tugging us, our desire, we need to move into action, which means we need to both reframe the fear, but also, like, what's the most natural thing when your child is scared? They want to hold your hand so you can walk together. And that might just be enough to help you move into the direction. And that's what I think too, is like, we're obviously not in this life experience alone. I'm sure, I don't feel I'm out of bounds saying this, that all that you've experienced and gone through probably intimately involve your relationship with your husband and your family and your closest friends, because they gave you a certain amount of courage, safety net, ability to take that next step or risk, ability to blow off some steam. So I also think for everyone here on a health journey, that's the point of why we're here in Fit Mother Project, is not just that good meal plans and good fitness. It's that we're literally holding each other's hands, stepping into something that is inherently scary, the change, but together it's a lot more manageable. Does that resonate with you?
Gosh, you started at the top talking about how great this medium is.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the points that you made is it's because this is such an intimate community. Like we're sharing, I mean, the stuff I'm telling you, by the way, I don't talk about from the stage when
For
I'm giving
sure.
a keynote. I mean,
Yeah.
we're talking about things that I don't talk about because this medium is so intimate, and what you are doing is building a community around the things that matter.
Mm-hmm.
Why I'm reminding us of that is because self-care is not designed to be solo care. I was having this brilliant conversation with this woman yesterday, and once I push that live, I'll give it to you so we can tag it so that I can
Mm-hmm.
give proper attribution to her. And she has built a whole technology around creating community around self-care. And
Mm-hmm.
our conversation was all about self-care is not solo care. And
Mm-hmm.
I was a lone ranger for many, 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 many years, Dr. A.
Mm-hmm.
Can you relate to that at all?
100%. Yeah. It works to a
Uh,
point until it breaks, which you said many
exactly.
times.
Like, this is great. Try and keep up. I'm going. If anyone wants to get on board, try and keep up. It changed my life when I started to understand and then invest in and be super intentional about the role that community plays in not just the stuff like having an accountability buddy or having this podcast even, which is an amazing resource so that people can relate to one another and learn new things and do things a bit differently and deprogram some of their old programming. But if you are out there struggling and you are feeling like a solo act right now, I want to tell you that I made a commitment as a Lone Ranger, a reformed Lone Ranger. I made a commitment 5 years ago. And I said, I'm going to make friends. I'm going to be a little bit more vulnerable because, Dr. A, we're all 11 years old.
Yeah.
Like
I
we
know
are
what you mean. This is still middle
emotionally
school
11 years
for
old.
sure. We're still in middle school. We're just like bigger and have more responsibilities, money, and people that depend on us. I get it.
I mean, I just moved I just moved outside of DC, Washington, DC in 2019. So not terribly long ago. My point to you is I was a full grown adult moving complete from North Carolina to where I had lived for some time to Washington, DC. Okay. I'm from
Mm-hmm.
neither. That's not the point. I'm a full grown adult now. Inside, I'm 11 and I have to go make friends. And I'm like, would you like to be my friend? And it's so vulnerable and it's so scary. And I had to be super intentional about it.
Yeah.
And I had to be really creative about it. But I knew I was kind of at the beginning of this particular journey. I knew that having community in lots of different ways, girlfriends and professional networks and
Mm-hmm.
neighbors and all these things that I had not invested in literally ever as an adult. I knew how enriching it was, and I had to be really intentional about it. So anyone out there who's feeling like that is not there for them, I just want you to know that I just did it. And if I did it, so can you. And I keep trying to surround myself with people that inspire me
Mm-hmm.
or relate to me or challenge me.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are spending your time around people who subtract more than they add, then you are putting hurdles in front of you that
Yeah.
do not belong there. So, in short, yeah, it resonates.
Yeah. And on that note, I think a part of getting older, a big skill is learning how to let things go. Our bodies
Mm,
teach us that, our friends teach us that. And there's a way to let them go with love, and there's a way to let them go with some taint of judgment that we must heal later. But like really feeling into the idea that there are people for reasons and seasons, and sometimes we outgrow them or we know it's time for a new environment. And we have to have self love to be able to do that. and then be with the feelings of the hurt that this relationship is going down, and then possibilities and new ones. It's a lot of feelings, but it seems so essential.
I think we should talk more. This is not a particularly deep insight, but I think we should talk more about how friendships can be for a season. Friendships can be designed for a season. What is
Yeah.
wrong with that? You
Right.
date. What's wrong with
sure.
dating before you're married? What is wrong
Mm.
with dating and having experiences with people that are absolutely great and fantastic, but they're not forever? Why would that be
Mhm.
any different? I don't
Mhm.
understand that in friendship relationships. I've had to release friendships, and I've just allowed for release of others,
Yeah.
and as others have done with me, because I frankly have never been burdened with the idea that we are stuck in any way
Right.
with choices that we made when we were 23.
Totally. I completely agree. And I feel like, at least in my life experience, there's a natural flow of energy of certain people you're in sync with at this time, other people you're not as in sync with. You have your bucket of your really old friends that you probably don't speak to that often, but you still totally love them and catch up whenever you do. And it's amazing. But just allowing that flow to happen without judging it seems like a path to more peace and joy.
Can I say something controversial that I
Let's,
think will be
let's go.
helpful?
For sure. I'm excited.
Okay. This is for my women friends out here today. I will not be friends with any woman that I connect with. I'm polite, we're civil, we have a lovely conversation over cocktails at whatever thing I'm at, whatever we're doing. I will not pursue a relationship if I sniff insecurity and competition from her. And
Mhm.
I know that can sound, we just met, some of the people that are listening today, we just met. You don't know me well enough to know that I love people. I want the best for them. And I thrive on uplifting others. Like, that is my
Mhm.
oxygen. I will not pursue a relationship if I get a vibe from another woman for it's a nanosecond that I am competition to her, or that there is some threat in the air. And my female friends know what I'm talking about, Dr.
I
A. They
do
know what I'm
too.
talking
I've
about.
seen my closest women in my life be frenemies with other people for years, actively hang out with this undercurrent. It's palpable. Even some
Absolutely
guys
not.
are attuned enough to do it. I'm glad you don't, but I see that pattern for sure.
Well, I only did for, like, I don't know, 39-ish years, roughly.
Yeah.
Okay, but here's what I learned. The moment I started filtering that way, and again, I realize that sounds harsh and I apologize, but I'm just going to be efficient and controversial at the same time.
Hmm.
The moment I started using that filter, I can be civil to everybody. My goodness, of course
Yeah.
I can. And everybody deserves that, and I can be respectful, but I won't be your friend. And what happened when I stopped allowing the passive aggressiveness in my life or the little snarky comments? Here's how you know. If something goes well in your life, I had one of my best friends call me last night using this ancient technology called the phone, because normally we just message each other, but we actually
Hmm.
spoke on the phone. And she was telling me about a professional success, and we do very similar work on different continents.
Hmm.
And 25-year-old me would have been jealous. I would have been happy for her, but honestly, I would have been like, well,
Yeah.
life is a pie and you just got a slice. So that's one less slice for me, I guess, and I would have,
Hmm.
somewhere in me, my light would have dimmed because
Yeah.
hers got brighter. Right.
Hmm.
And that is not who I am. And that is not who I surround myself by. And when she called me and told me that, I had pure joy. I felt like it was my success. Now, I want you to surround yourself with people who light up when they see good things for you. And I want you to pay real close attention to what happens in their eyes.
Yeah. The eyes will tell for sure.
What happens behind their eyes, or what happens with their text messages or so on, when life starts going pretty well for you, or when you share a small win, or when you share a big win. That is probably one of my best kept secrets.
It's beautiful. And I'll offer this too, from the wisdom that I've gained, that's merely a reflection of their unhealing. Like,
For
and the
sure.
fact that you receive your friend in joy now is a reflection of the fact that your heart is healed. You feel whole in yourself, not contingent upon your metric of success. And anyone who's in your life who may not be positive, they're hurt on some level. They're not fully healed, or they wouldn't respond in that way. And so we can see them with the eyes of compassion, not with the eyes of judgment, but still not associate or invest energy. And that's the clean way, because the trap that's right there, the closest next door, is the one of judgment, of saying, oh, they're just not a supportive person, blah, blah, blah. And you're actually now creating your own mental, emotional baggage through your perceptive lens you just put on them, that you're going to have to reckon with another friendship, because now you're creating that filter in your own mind and heart.
Men.
Okay, Ella, towards the end of this, I have a list of a document that literally says deep questions, and you're the first person that I get to ask these to, but I'm only going to ask you a few of them, not all of them. And maybe they'll be relevant, but I like these questions a lot. Okay.
I'm ready.
First question. What is a no or refusal in your life that you keep on postponing?
What is a no? Like, no, I won't do that, or no, I won't engage in that, but I keep postponing it?
Is there a boundary or something that you haven't set, or something that you've been holding off on saying no to? Anything you're avoiding that you keep on kicking down?
Anthony, that is such a good question. I am a super, super boundaried person. And I quite literally deliver a workshop on learning how to say no to things. In this case, I can honestly say that is work I've probably already done, but I'll be good for the next one. No,
that's a great answer. And I think everyone, as I'm asking you these questions, I mean, that's a powerful spot to be, to say that. I mean, I have one. There's an event I don't think I'm going to be able to go to, and I'm just kicking it down the can. And I haven't said no because it's a little awkward to say no, but that's it. Okay, next question. Keep on going.
I'm sorry. Okay. Dr. A, let me just drop this in, though. Oh shit, I forgot what I was going to say. Please edit this out.
Was it about, no, we're keeping it 100%. Was it about my refusal to like say no because I'm a little worried about avoiding the kind of tension situation, or just like, it's that email I haven't responded to?
Got it. Thank you so much. That was helpful. I think the biggest lesson that I learned, that maybe this will be of use, the biggest lesson that I learned that allowed me to have no as a superpower now, is being willing to have 10 seconds of awkwardness to avoid weeks or months of suffering. So I will now take that 10 seconds. Sometimes it's 90 seconds. It's very rarely longer than 5 minutes of awkwardness to spare everyone trouble for something that can be measured in hours, days, weeks, and months.
Makes sense. What a trade-off when you feel it that way. Okay, next question. What's a commitment you've made that you no longer believe in?
Oh, these are so good.
I know. I can send you this list. I didn't get these. These are from an author named David Brooks, and I listened to a talk, and he's like, well, these are the good questions. A commitment you've made that you no longer believe in.
Traditional school.
There you go.
I have sent quite a few people through university at this point. But I'm talking from the ground up. I think where we are with school right now is an absolute mess. And I've been schooled. So I did the traditional path. My dependents have done a traditional path, and I have a lot of questions about that commitment.
Yeah. I think a lot of people will resonate with that for sure. And that's a space that I think is going to be massively disrupted because a lot of people feel that way.
Yeah.
Question. What talent do you have that you feel deep down you're not using to the fullest capacity?
Okay, well, I personally think I'm an amazing singer, and I sound so bomb in the shower. And I just think God thought I'd be too powerful if I could do that in the real world.
So it's mostly, it just sticks in the shower, but your voice in that shower environment just crushes it.
Golden.
I believe it.
Golden. No, there are so many answers to that, actually. And in all seriousness, well, I mean, I was being serious, but I believe that I'm always living short of what I'm capable of. And that is work that I'm still doing. And that there are creative barriers there that I'm still actively working on busting down. I mean, on the regular, my friend. But yeah, creatively, professionally, creatively, particularly. Like I don't need to paint. But the expression of what I already do, bigger and for more people, is something that I constantly feel that I'm falling short of.
I can relate to that for sure. 2 more questions. One is, what crossroads are you at in your life right now?
Ooh, good one. Okay, so God, these questions. Honestly, couldn't you have given a girl a heads up?
This is way better.
Okay. I'm at several. And most notably, I started a consulting company 21 years ago. It just had its 21st birthday a couple weeks ago. Thank you. My business can drink now. And that is an offline corporate consulting company that does, big business with publicly held corporations and high industrial stuff. Okay. So I've been in a lot of boardrooms. Believe it or not, I can be appropriate when needed. I have enjoyed it very, very, very much. And I am 100% ready to stop doing traditional consulting. And so I have turned that spigot off. I still work with corporations, but I work with them in a slightly different capacity with regard to communications and leadership development and personal development and, getting executives fine-tuned, et cetera, and getting stuff done. But my point to you is I took an enormous leap and turned off that entire revenue stream and like, well, I guess we're hustling. I guess we're figuring this out again. I guess we're challenging ourselves again. I guess we're stepping out again, because I could have just ridden that train, Dr. A, for into the night. Yeah. Yeah. So that's amazing. That's the one I'm feeling the most.
It's like closing in a rebirth. That's powerful experience.
Yeah. And meantime, it shouldn't be left unsaid that I told you I just turned 50. It still sounds weird on my tongue because I'm 36. I'm definitely 36. I'm, the maturity of maybe a 17-year-old, but I embody 36-year-old energy, and I did when I was 20. Do you have an age that you are?
I'm old. I'm old AF. I don't know. I'm like a spry 69-year-old. Like,
okay, I love that for you. I totally see that for you. My son was born 47. Yeah. When he was 4, he would be like, Mom, that's not appropriate. Okay. My point to you is that I think it's really relevant that I'm just starting this new decade with a crap ton of energy and a lot of fire. And yet, it has to be said, that's a transition. Like, there are still things that you have to face and deal with and learn about and keep your mind open, and your body is different. You can't do what you used to do, doesn't work for you. So that experience is a juncture in and of itself. And I think it's important. I think more women should talk about it. So
that's awesome.
That's happening too.
Love it. Super exciting. And I'm drawing a lot of inspiration from your youth, the 36-year-old energy that you are injecting into this 2024. It's beautiful. Last question, and this is kind of deep and it can go in many different ways. Okay. And it might be hard to answer because I'm thinking about my answer to this, but tell me about a time where you really felt seen. Like, you felt seen, like your heart was open. Someone made it to the point where like something happened where you felt seen, your essence, whatever it is. It could be recent, could be in the past.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really, really lucky that I have found a partner in life who somehow is able to make me feel seen whenever I ask that of him. And I don't ever ask that. I don't mean that literally. I mean it implicitly. He knows that I need that when I don't. And so I won't belabor that because that's not as accessible. But I will say that I think I have failed at marriage. I had a practice marriage. It went down in flames. Okay. let that be said. And I've been married for 15 years to my husband, and wow, it makes a difference who you marry. So hot take, it really makes a difference who you partner up with. But I'll answer in perhaps a more useful way, in that, because this goes back to the community and having the right friends in your life. Lots of my friends and we don't just shoot the breeze. We talk a lot about our businesses, our creative endeavors or whatnot. And I had helped out one of my friends through a tricky negotiation, and she came back to me and she didn't just say thank you. She said, and I won't bore you with the details, but in summary, she said, you had an enormous amount going on. You did not have space for this. You stopped. You invested in me. You helped me sort through a problem that I could not have gotten to the same end without your input. And then this was the result. What a way to say thank you. I mean, what Seriously. A way to say thank you. I mean, that made me feel so humbled and grateful. And yeah, it still kind of chokes me up a little bit, because it's like, yeah, you don't often get that kind of, you don't often get those types of roses, right?
That's a really special one. She recognized the investment you made, the capacity that you have, and what you did was actually helpful for her, and she was a special friend, all these elements are amazing.
But it makes me want to be that person for more people. Like, it's such a beautiful cycle.
I agree. Whatever that is the religion I follow.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. That's the best of us in whatever way that connects with other people. So maybe we end there. Ella, this was one of my most fun conversations of all time. Thank you for bringing the heat and the energy. And obviously, I want to give you the floor for the final time and tell everyone On Air with Ella podcast, if you want to get this in your life on a daily basis, you could listen to 300 episodes over the course of this year and listen to her every day. But thanks again. Anything you want to share in closing?
No, I am super easy to find, and I just appreciate you so much. And I'm so glad to know you. And we definitely need to do this again.
I totally agree. I'm like, I'm not going to lie. I had the thought, like, what if Ella and I had a podcast? That'd be pretty legit. I'm not saying we should do that. You got your own thing. We got enough going on, but this was great. I think everyone recognizes that. Thanks,
All
Ella.
right, we'll talk again.
Hey there, my friend. Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of the Fit Mother Project podcast. If you love what you heard, I have a favor to ask you. Please consider taking 60 seconds right now to leave us a rating and review on our podcast. Leaving us a review is super quick. It only takes a minute, and it's so helpful to us as it really boosts this podcast to reach more people who need this information and this message. If you're listening on Apple Podcast, you can leave us a star rating and review. If you're watching on YouTube, you can hit the like button and leave us a comment. Overall, I truly appreciate you being with us here on the podcast. On behalf of me and my entire Fit Mother Project team, we truly feel honored and grateful to support you and your family on your journey to fantastic health. I thank you for your support of this podcast and of this mission. Also, if you're interested in joining our Complete Fit Mother program and becoming an official member of our community, you can visit our website, fitmotherproject.com. And on the Fit Mother site, you'll be able to see our Complete Fit Mother program, along with our online store with the best supplements designed for busy moms. And you'll also find a ton of free resources like recipes, workouts, meal plans, and more. God bless you and your family. This is Dr. Anthony Balduzzi signing off. I'll catch you on the next episodes of the Fit Mother Project podcast.